As you can see, my cat Marcello likes to be on camera.
I love that.
He always
Yay,
photobombs
kitties.
me.
Yay, kitties. Hey, everyone. Ivana Taylor here. I am your host for Bizapalooza Chat, and we are plugging in today to the longest debate on the planet. And it's all about getting sales and marketing to work together. It's either sales or it's marketing. You can't beat them, join them, so on and so forth. And for that, oh my goodness, I thought I was the one with the weird name. But Erica, is it held?
Healed.
I thought healed. I was like, Okay, so I've got Erica Healed, who is our expert here in sales enablement. I'll say that one day correctly. And I'm so happy to have you because you also are a host of Twitter chat as well. So talk a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got to where we are today.
Sure. So I'm Erica Heald. I'm here in San Francisco. And so I'm not watching the eclipse because we are fogged in. So between the marine layer and the fog, the eclipse was really basically, it was just a little kind of extra dark here in my apartment. Nothing really to see. So my background was originally journalism, and I don't know about you, but something I found out pretty quickly is journalism was a fantastic hobby and a horrible way to make a living, especially in a city as expensive as San Francisco. So pretty quickly I ended up doing what was then called marketing communications, and then had a job as an editorial director and all these various things that really ended up being called content marketing now. But a big part of my role was always helping kind of bridge the gap between the marketing and the sales teams by creating content to really help sales understand and connect with their customer. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today. But then Content Chat is a chat that's I think about 5 years old now, and I had been a participant for many of those years. And then when the founder wanted to move on to other things, she had passed it off to Lucy Rinder Kaplan, who then got to be super busy. And I said, hey, pick me. I miss having this chat every Monday. And so then I took it over a little over a year ago and have just been using it basically as sort of like a professional development opportunity for myself and for the members of the community.
Oh, I love that. And I think it comes right after this. So I'm not going to hold you too long because I know you've got your own chat to get to, right? So that is so exciting. And what you and I were talking about before the camera went live on the conversation is that I used to call this marketing services. And I think the biggest pain I saw was that sales folks actually wanted to sell, and they wanted customers to just show up ready to buy. And I could see that the marketing department as it was just really didn't have that to give them. So my question for you is, you said something about another challenge that sales folks have in the market. So why don't sales and marketing people get along? Let's ask about that.
Well, I'd say, there's a few things, probably just because they don't know each other. So they're kind of warring factions for budget, each side thinking that the other side is just wasting the company's money. So, I think that's certainly a big part of it. But, basically, a lot of times marketers don't ever speak to customers. A lot of times salespeople don't have an understanding of the go-to-market strategy or the messaging that they're supposed to be using. And they kind of both see each other as the enemy. And when you start out in that kind of a way, rather than seeing each other as, helpers to get your goals done, I think you're kind of inevitably locked in that, sales and marketing or cats and dogs kind of situation.
I think that's so smart because that's exactly right. I always remember when I was working in corporate, the complaint was something like, sales and marketing are not the same thing. We go out and do this, and you salespeople, you do that. And there seemed to be this ongoing war. And you're so right. What would be so much better is if we saw each other working together.
Exactly.
Right? We're all in the same game. Right?
Exactly. We all need to have the same goals. And as long as you have it set up so that everybody does have the same goals, then I think that's when you're going to have your sales and marketing teams collaborating, because neither of them can get their job done or meet their numbers without each other. The marketers don't want to go out and do direct sales, and the salespeople, they need to have a story. They need to have something to talk to the customer about. And that's where the marketing team can help.
Exactly. So now there's a newfangled word for that, and it's called sales enablement. So talk a little bit about what that was, because I was out of it.
So, in my background, I've worked with a lot of startups. And so, startup culture, we like to coin lots of phrases for things. And sales enablement is basically marketing being tasked with giving sales tools and training in order to help them do a better job with selling. So that can include everything from, doing that kind of one-on-one training and coaching to get them to be really familiar with the industry and the product that they're selling, but also doing things like having battle cards that explains to them how the product or services are different than what the competitors are selling, having email templates that they can customize with little things that they've learned from their conversations, but that have a narrative to them and links to other resources. So really just sort of being that intermediary helper to make sure that sales has something to talk to the customers about.
I love that. What did you call that? Battle
cards.
I have, once again, oh my God, I'm so out of it. Great. Battle card. So what's a battle card?
So battle cards are basically, and this is a little bit more product marketing-y than I usually get, but I was actually just talking with a good friend about this the other day because she's going to be creating some for one of my clients. They basically help you sell against your competitors. So it will take, the features, the benefits, the differentiations between the two different products and put them side by side so that when a salesperson is actually coming up to getting some objections, such as, oh, this client already uses a competitor, or this, they're really considering this competitor, it helps you with the facts to sell against it. So maybe something that their salespeople is always saying isn't true about your product. You need to know that so that way you can head it off at the pass.
Okay, so I got to ask the practical question. Mm-hmm. Is this something that salespeople should be cramming? Yeah. Or are they like in a, excuse me, let me pull out my battle card.
It's really something they should be cramming, make them flashcards, do it whatever way is going to work for them. I personally think having it as, some sort of a PDF for them to study is great, but you need to have that one-on-one, let them get some practice in. So that way, marketing can play that role of being the really obnoxious, prospect. I think it's a lovely way of kind of helping them get started.
So do you have some tips now that you've said that? Like I already have this picture in my head with the marketing person and the salesperson like working together, and I was actually able to have that experience once or twice. What are some tips that people can use? Like if you are in a company where sales and marketing aren't the best of friends, what are some tips you have for them to like kind of get that engagement going between each other?
The first step really is around goals. So, it's talking to your C-suite and making sure that the sales and marketing team have goals that are complementary. Because for instance, if you give marketing a goal of an outrageous number of leads coming through, then they're going to focus on that. If you give them a goal that they need to help facilitate a certain number of closed-won deals, then they're going to work with the sales team to identify the right measurements, the right KPIs, the right customers to make sure that they're not just flooding the pipeline with a bunch of crappy leads, as sales frequently refers to marketing-generated leads. For that reason, because if marketing is told, hey, you have to generate 1 million leads, they're going to generate 1 million leads, but you're not going to want to follow up on them.
So do you think that having a great sales enablement strategy or sales and marketing working together as a team, does it actually make it easier to sell? Because one of the questions I'm asking is sales, love it or hate it, and why? And it occurs to me that it's hard to sell. Absolutely.
Totally.
It's like that Glengarry Glen Ross, always be closing, and here are the leads and fighting against leads, but the leads are crappy and that's not fun.
Yeah, totally. And when you have that really strong sales enablement team, you're able to bring a new salesperson in and give them the tools to be successful. They don't want to come in and not make their goal and not get their bonus, because most of them, that's the biggest part of their compensation is those bonuses that they're getting for closing deals. So when they feel like they have a team that's supporting them, that's going to be so much easier to attract and to retain salespeople. I think a lot of organizations that have that constant churn, it's because they're not giving their salespeople the right tools.
And that brings to mind something. You said that you worked with a lot of startups. Now, I work with a lot of small business owners. I call them Main Street business owners. Some of them are in tech and some of them are in like relatively mundane industries, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things they really struggle with is finding salespeople and then helping those salespeople become successful. Now, if you don't have a marketing department and it's just you as the small business owner,
yep.
What are your suggestions for, right? Because then that business owner becomes the sales enablement person.
100%, and I think that's something that folks don't think about, because you're like, oh, that's just a big business tactic. But think about, like, when you go to when you go to a restaurant that you really love, where that waiter knows every single thing on the menu, they can actually really help you find what you are looking for. They know about the wine list. That isn't something that happened automagically. That is something that happened because that business owner gave them basically sales enablement. They made sure that they had the tasting notes. They made sure that they actually tried the food. So that way they have that personal experience. But the same can be true. Like, oh goodness, we went to a craft store this weekend, and my significant other is a librarian and is doing a project with decoupage. And so we needed to get a spray-on fixative. So of course, you'd think that at a craft store, they would be able to help you with that. The woman that we asked if they had that stared at us, said she had no idea, and then asked if it was an aerosol. We said, yes, it's definitely an aerosol. She says, well, I'll take you to where the aerosols are. She's like, I just don't know anything about crafts. And we looked at her and she said, I know, I work at a craft store and I don't know anything about crafts. And I just thought about that and I'm like, that's terrible. Because think of, if they were doing a good job of enabling their salespeople, wouldn't they be able to upsell and just have the significantly higher sales per customer, because they'd be able to suggest things? But in this case, she had absolutely no idea of something really basic that we're asking about. So I think that's an example of what happens when you don't have enablement.
That is such great point. And I love that you specifically talked about the small business owner and what they can do to make it easier for folks to sell, right? So yeah. If I'm watching this and this just like hit me square between the eyes, and I think I have a few clients for whom that will be true, what advice would you give to someone who's a small business owner and wants to make their salespeople successful? How do you take time out of your busy day to teach them these things?
It's hard, especially if you're talking about retail or some other kind of time-based, shift-based workforce. So you have to think about, how can you give them this experience without it being too onerous? Because for instance, you don't want to maybe have all hands meetings, because then you're asking people to come in for an hour for a meeting when they're not working, and that's not really, reasonable. So I think you can do things like what we're doing here, having a Google Hangout, doing some sort of live video chat, or just recording something brief. But also making sure that you have those experiences available to your salespeople. Don't make them guess what it's like to use the product. Let them actually have access to the product. For instance, if you're running a bookstore, wouldn't you be giving people a discount on books, or a book allowance, because you want them to recommend books? So you certainly need to be facilitating that, because on a retail salary, you can't really be buying a lot of hardcover brand new books, can you? But you need to be recommending them to people.
I love those tips, and there's so many great tools that you can use, right? And what else occurred to me today, with social media being what it is, this is the perfect opportunity for a business owner to actually set the pace. Maybe you could, I haven't gotten it yet. Maybe you are more important and got one. That LinkedIn now has the video feature that you can do. So some of my friends have it. I don't have it yet. But what a great opportunity to sort of set the stage and show people, you can do it publicly. Now you can educate both customers and employees. Or is that dangerous? I just said that and I'm wondering, maybe that's dangerous.
It's going to be really interesting to see, what kind of plays out with the LinkedIn video, because I feel like we've been seeing kind of a proliferation of pretty spammy content, really clickbaity, people just trying to get likes and clicks, etc. And I'm worried that the video is not going to be a great addition to LinkedIn, but we'll see.
Oh, don't scare me, right? Because I ran away. I have to tell you, I ran away from Facebook because I just got tired.
Yeah.
I just got tired. Even the sponsored posts and everything is just so full of stuff that I'm like, I was on LinkedIn back in 2004. And then I didn't like it because it was spammy and the groups were spammy and everything was spammy. And I wasn't learning anything about anyone. This new engagement feed that they have, I like it much better.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I am curious, right, like you, as to how that's going to work. But like you said, there's so many great tools. Let's see, I put some in my, it's actually, I use Chrome.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really awesome little tools that you can use. One I got is called Wave. What's really great about Wave is that it gives you the Google, interaction that you get with Google Docs. So you can write emails together. So that way, if a salesperson does have to write an email, you can kind of collaborate on it in real time.
I love that.
To have that on the court. Another one that I really love, let's see if I can find it up here. It's a video thing. Is it this thing? The tutorial builder. It's called IORAD, IORAD. It's a tutorial builder. So you can screencast and go through a process yourself, and also show people how to do it. So I have a manufacturing background, so I'm very, very into the business owner has to do it first and see what works, and then you can teach salespeople.
Totally.
Right? So the other thing that we talked about while folks are still chatting away, you said that you were a gamer before we got into this. And I'm really kind of curious as to what is it that being a gamer and being in that space, in what ways does that teach you or inspire you in this sales and marketing space?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, I play World of Warcraft, which is an online multiplayer RPG. And what's so interesting is you end up playing with all of these different people across the US. We have a bunch of Canadians we play with too, and you're collaborating to do something. In this case, frequently it's, kill internet dragons. But you have to coordinate all of these people that, you're not their boss, but you have to get them to, collaborate. So I feel like it's really helped me from a collaboration standpoint. But I also just really understand what's happening from a pop culture standpoint, because every one of our servers has thousands of people, and you just see, what are people talking about? What are they spoilering? Because if they're bothering to spoiler Game of Thrones, that's how that's when we knew that Game of Thrones had really taken off a few years ago, because people were bothering to get online and to ruin the whole episode for people. So for me, it's fascinating from that standpoint.
I think that's really great. Okay, I hope I'm not going to put you on the spot with this, but this is so fascinating. So you talked about learning about collaboration in that space. I totally get it. And now my question is, what is one lesson that you learned in your role-playing game that you've applied to helping sales and marketing work together to achieve a goal?
I've probably, and this is also because of using Twitter, but I think I learned how to really break down instructions for what to do into the tiniest, most simple, little blurbs. Because basically you end up doing something where you have to explain to other people what you need them to do, and it has to be stupid simple. There can't be any, room for interpretation, and it needs to be super fast because everyone's go, go, go. So I think that's what I learned, is how to really simplify. Because, I'm a writer. I like pretty words, and you can't use them when you're trying to, collaborate with sales. You got to keep it really, really simple.
That is fantastic. And, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I remember a few years ago, I was exploring creating products and different types of, how-to types of things. And just like you said, there is something about that I had to learn about getting specific about instructions. And I've actually applied that to every area of my life. Like, I'm changing my website, moving files, and I want to reconfigure some different things and so on and so forth. And because I have to talk to developers and it's a virtual team and blah, 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 I give them both visual as well as like diagrams and instructions. And sometimes I do little videos. I do like everything. And my developer is like, oh my God, this is awesome. Because there's never a doubt about what you want.
Totally. And I think that's a really good point, because we all learn differently. I'm a writer, so I like words. I need to have something explained in words for me. If it's just visual, I get really frustrated because I'm like, well, that's not enough information for me. Whereas other people, they don't want to read anything. They want a video. But if you say, oh, here's how to do it, and you send me a video link, I'm cranky, because I'm like, I don't want to watch that video because I read really quickly. So for me, I'm like, I could read that in 15 seconds, and instead you want me to watch a 2-minute video? No, thank you.
I was just with Ramon Ray last week, and I don't know what you think about the trends for video. They are going up, 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 and they have been for years. I almost want to say,
yeah,
almost like 10 years. I mean, for 10 years, I've heard video is hot, hot, hot. It's making up a bunch of the internet. And I am like you. I prefer all these different kinds of content. Even this Twitter chat. Video is not my favorite thing, but there are people who are like, I love watching the video.
Yeah.
And then there are folks that never watch the video. They only watch the chat.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Go figure, right?
For me, it's got to have like cats or adorable little puppies for me to be excited about a video.
Yeah, right? Isn't that pathetic?
Right.
So I don't know if we've talked about this, but I feel like I want to ask you about we've kind of been talking around the different challenges, but what are the specific challenges that a small business owner might have as they try to prepare their sales teams? Because I can tell you, I have seen small business owners who hire salespeople and they're like, I hate selling, please just do it.
Well, I think that's kind of the big problem is that, you hire people to do it because you don't like doing it. But then how are you able to evaluate if they're doing a good job? Or how can you evaluate that you've given them the tools they need to actually do it? So again, going back to those examples of restaurants, we've all also been to restaurants where you ask somebody about, they tell you the special and you ask them a question and they can't answer it because they didn't try the special. They have no idea. And then they're kind of annoyed with you and they go back and they find out and they trudge over to you and they tell you what it is. Well, you're not going to order that special because they didn't care. They aren't interested. You're going to just order something plain because now you're thinking, oh gosh, these people don't have their act together.
Right.
So, and that's because no one took the time with them. And I think especially, I'm a solopreneur, it's hard when you're working with external folks to take the time, but you have to, because to your point, when you take the time to help them understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how to position it to other people, you're going to just get better results. You're not going to get that person who has no idea what it is and can't answer questions, because that doesn't save you time. Because what happens when you're somebody who's working for you can't answer the question, and they have to come back to you. And then by the time you've re-explained to them and they go back, frequently it's too late.
So like you mentioned a little bit about content marketing. Let's talk a little bit about content marketing. What role does content marketing play in helping sales and marketing to work together?
Well, content's great from the standpoint of it helps develop that trust with your customer because you're giving them something valuable without asking for anything. You're saying, here's something that we are passionate about and we know about, and here you go. It's a gift. It's our gift to you. So because you're giving it to them without that expectation of anything in return, that's when you're really able to start building those long-term relationships. And then those are the folks that will come back and buy from you, refer you, etc. So for sales, no one likes a cold call from a salesperson. I don't know about you, I get them constantly. When when a phone number comes up and I don't recognize it, I don't pick up the phone because I know it's somebody trying to sell me something. And the same is true with an email. You get a sales email out of the blue from somebody you've never heard of, from some company you don't recognize. What do you do with that email? You don't reply. So for me, content marketing really helps warm up those prospects because that, ideally, you're not reaching out to somebody until they've consumed some of your content. So they're aware of your company. And if they've been consuming it over time, they're predisposed to listen to you. What do you have to say? So that's, to me, sort of content marketing is like the warm up. So that way those sales calls aren't so cold.
I love that. So one thing we haven't really talked about is coming up with ideas for content. What are some great ways for sales and marketing people to work together to maybe, right, because salespeople are out there always front and center with the customer. Marketing people, maybe they're looking at data or, who knows what. What are some tips for having the two groups work together to create really great content that will help both of them?
I feel like if a salesperson has been asked the same question more than once, they need to send that over to the content team. Say, hey, here's a question that I keep getting. Can you help me flesh this out? Can you create some content around it? Because that's obviously, if the salespeople are hearing these questions, those are questions your content should be answering. And if you're not, excuse me, summer allergies. And if you're not able, to maybe get that real-time feedback, you can use tools like Answer the Public or Quora to see what are people in general asking about your competitors, about your industry, about what you do, and then start creating content around that.
I think that's terrific. One of the things, I have a client that I'm working with, they're really technical folks, super, super, super smart, right? Really struggling with like cornerstone content, pillar content that's going to help explain their differentiation in the market and so on and so forth. And one of the things that seems to be working well with them is like writing about features, for example, and kind of starting, are there, so our idea was, hey, okay, you feel comfortable with features, but you don't feel comfortable with like thought leadership pieces. Let's write a little bit more about features and let's see if we can cull some good thought leadership out of that conversation. I don't know how I feel about that strategy. Are there any other tips that you might have from your experience? Because you're out there in Tech Central.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, figure out what medium your thought leader is really comfortable with. And for a lot of them, it's talking. They're really, they feel really comfortable talking. So get them to do things like give them a Google Voice number that you don't answer, that goes directly to your voicemail, so that they can just talk in your voicemail. And then you can get a transcript of that, and then you can create content from it. Or have them do a video chat with you. Whatever it is, all of these things, you can record them, you can get a transcript from them, and you can turn it into a story. I think the big mistake a lot of times that we make is we expect that person to be able to create the thought leadership themselves. And realistically, a lot of people are not writers. So tasking them with writing something that you're going to be pitching to a business publication, it's horrible. It's like the worst thing that they would never want to do. And how can you be asking them to do it? So you need to not ask them to do that. You need to ask them to share their expertise with you, tease the information out of them, and then help them create that piece.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. Have you seen this Twitter stream? Have you seen Tiana's GIF? That is the funniest thing I have ever seen.
I haven't. Let me find it. Oh, that's so cute. That's adorable.
Cat videos. We just can't stop. We cannot
Totally.
stop. Let's talk a little bit about email, because I think you mentioned email as part of a sales enablement strategy, and a lot of CRMs have email templates. What are some ways that, again, how can sales and marketing work together and, work around email?
Totally. So I think a lot of times you get in a situation where marketing's like, oh, this is the email we are sending on your behalf, sales. And I think that's not the right way to approach it. I think ideally what you should be doing is saying, hey, sales, here's a template, and here's some places for you to customize it, reflecting your relationship with the customer. Because, again, we marketing folks, we're not having conversations with them. We don't remember the little asides. We don't know what you've been from your social selling, what you know about them from their Twitter feed, right? Like a good salesperson should know that I'm a gluten-free baker and I love cats. That's something that anybody who's a casual peruser of my Twitter feed would know. That's not something that a marketer at a company that I've never interacted with would know. And so, if I was selling to me, I would put a really funny cat GIF in an email. And occasionally people do that. And you know what? I reply back to them, even if I'm not interested, because they bothered to show that they actually did some research into who I am and what I'm interested in. And that for me is just amazing. That's going to go really far.
And there are some really, really sweet tools. I don't know what they have for folks using Outlook or whatever. I happen to use the Gmail platform. And I have something that I added. Giphy. I love Giphy. Right? Giphy has a little plugin that you can use. And I also got, I can't believe it, but I got Bitmoji. I got a Bitmoji thing that I could put in my emails. Unfortunately, I can put it in Twitter, but I cannot put it like in TweetDeck. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that you can do it. You can cut and paste in Twitter. That is so much fun.
Totally.
So emojis, Bitmojis, Giphies. I actually sent an email with a Giphy to someone and it totally made their day. It's still new enough. You can do it.
Agreed. Folks who say that
effect, right?
Folks who say that GIFs are not professional, sure, maybe in some businesses they're just too casual, but we're all people and you're selling to other people. And if it's a really spot on GIF, like if they're a Game of Thrones fan and you send them a really spot on GIF, you've totally just made a connection there that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Absolutely. I think that is so smart. So we've just been talking about social media. how can sales and marketing work together around social media? Because I think, and I could be wrong, you may know better than I do, I feel like marketing tends to own that social media space. And tend to work in more B2B, more technical manufacturing spaces. So I don't see salespeople really being on anything other than like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, how could a sales and marketing team sort of like spread their wings on social? I don't know. Anything you want to say about sales and marketing working together on social?
Well, I think especially once you start thinking about taking an account-based marketing approach where you're really targeting a specific company and the decision makers at that company, you absolutely have to understand where those people are on social and what they're talking about. So, LinkedIn is really only their first step. It's really figuring out, okay, do they have a public Facebook feed? Do they, are they sharing stuff on Twitter? Are they participating in Twitter chats? Because if you find out that one of your primary prospects is a regular member of a Twitter chat, you're going to find out so much about them that's going to make you be able to have that personal conversation to actually lead to a sale.
Exactly. I think that's so true. And, I think the other thing that we tend to forget is a lot of marketers look at social media as a communication channel, and this is getting into social selling. However, I think that social media is a great top of the funnel. So at least for me, I meet a lot of strangers on Twitter because it's just so unassuming. It's so easy and not threatening to connect with someone on Twitter. But then from Twitter, I might move to email and then to LinkedIn, or from Twitter, I might go to LinkedIn, then to email.
Yep.
So you can kind of work that around as more of a top of the funnel type of thing. Do you think marketers should be providing guidelines or whatever for because let me tell you, I have gotten some nasty LinkedIn messages, right? Like, can marketing provide guidelines to salespeople so that they can sell more effectively on social?
They can and they should. That's something that I put together at a former company I worked with full time. We actually did, as part of our new employee onboarding, we did a whole training session. And if you were in sales, you got extra training. You got training around, here's what your LinkedIn profile should look like. Here's how you use LinkedIn. Don't go into groups and spam our content. You need to have conversations. We literally spelled all of that out. And as a result, we didn't have people doing stuff that made us cringe. And it was just because we gave them guidelines and examples and, encouraged them, said, 100% we want you to be on social, but when you're representing the company, here's some things that we want you to think about. Because we're all adults and we want to do a good job. So I feel like if you can give them that support, then you're not going to end up in a situation that you wish you weren't in.
Yeah, exactly. So how could sales and marketing sort of, how do I say this, collaborate, talk together? I know like when I'm working with social media teams for my clients or something, they might send me a calendar and I get to look and see the themes of what we're going to be sharing and approve them, tweak them, add things that might be more time worthy that they won't know about, right? Because they're not in the office. Is there like a structure in place that sales and marketing can use to sort of get on the same page?
Totally. I mean, I'm a firm believer that you should be having editorial meetings on a quarterly basis that have all of your stakeholders who are either consuming or creating content. Because it's not just the content team, it's not just the marketing team. Your customer success team is creating content. Your sales team is creating content. All these different folks know about things that are going on. And when you have them all together in a room, then you can create an editorial calendar that actually reflects all the events you're going to be at, all of your product announcements and new releases, all the things that are happening. And then you can have a really tight communication strategy around it. But if you don't have everyone coming together in that kind of a forum, you don't know what's going on. Sometimes you'll see marketing departments will share, here's the marketing calendar, everyone, and share it with a link. That's not really helpful because that's not asking people to participate in creating it. And they're not going to help you. They're going to just go, oh, there's marketing. They're clueless. Look how they forgot all these things. And they'll talk amongst themselves, but they won't share it back with you.
I hear you. And I got to ask this question, and you may not have an answer because you're so awesome. So you may not have this answer. But have you ever heard about or experienced an organization that has gone through a transformation about how sales and marketing work together, like where maybe there was a dissonance and maybe they didn't go well? And what did they do to then ultimately become a high-performing team?
I did go into an organization that did not have great relationships between sales and marketing. And, I just, as the content person, I came in and I sat down with the head of sales and I said, I want to hear what's working, what's not working. And then I also helped that person do thought leadership under their byline, because that's a really great way to get somebody to have buy-in to content, is by making them, have content that they're, sparking the ideas, but you're creating it for them and it's giving them the tools that they need. Then they're going to be a lot more on board with helping you overall. So from, that was kind of the start. But then one of the things that we uncovered is the need for having a sales content library that was really easy for salespeople to use. Not just like, here's a link and go, hunt through all of these box folders to find your stuff, but having an actual library that was easy to sort through and find what they needed.
Speaking of something you and I were talking about earlier, where you have to spell things out very easily.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned in the coaching consulting space that I absolutely loved is that if you want folks to do something, make it as absolutely easy as possible. So if we wanted folks to promote an event, or if we wanted something
Yep.
to go out, I would put out an email and say, here are the tweets I want you to send.
Yep.
With a click to tweet link on there,
exactly.
right? Like, just click here.
Exactly.
That's all you have to do. And not like 5, but like every other day, I would say, here's a Twitter, here's a Facebook, here's a something, here's a LinkedIn, here's a, just click here.
Totally.
Or cut, paste, and click. And because of that, David Allen, get things done, whatever, if it takes less than 2 minutes, you might as well do it. And if somebody sends those to me, I am happy to do it. Happy.
Exactly. And I think click to tweet is really an underutilized tool, because it's literally that simple. You type out what you want somebody to be tweeting and you share an email, and they literally click on a link and there it pops up in their Twitter window, and they can add something to it if they want, or they can send it as is. It's so easy.
It's so easy. And I think that even if you're a small business and you don't have a marketing team and you only have 1 or 2 salespeople, there are folks out there who actually do this for a living, and
exactly
what they do. They have systems. So one of my tips to folks is, and everyone's like, well, DIY marketers, aren't you supposed to do everything yourself? And I'm like, not exactly.
Nope.
Right? I like to automate so that I can engage, for example. So one of the things that I even have is I'll say to folks, this is what I want to do. Like, I just thought of something today. There's so many great tweets on this chat and the last few chats. I have a mind to go into my feed and find certain great tweets and then send them off to my admin and say, hey, make images out of these and post them.
Yeah, that's smart.
Like something like that, right? So like, that's DIY marketers. You have your idea, but then you can hand that off to folks so that your day isn't overwhelmed by things. Like, can I do that? Yeah, I can totally do that. I can, it would take me like 10 hours.
Exactly.
I don't know. So we've been talking about tips. What haven't we talked about? What are some things that are on your mind? And what are some challenges that you've seen or you're dealing with right now that, or you can talk about trends maybe, or like, what do you see going on?
I feel like everyone's wanting to kind of be involved with content. So in a way, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because on the one hand, you do want lots of people being involved with content. But when everybody has a great idea for content, you can end up being pretty scattered with what you're doing from a strategy standpoint. Because inevitably they're going to want to do stuff that's not, it's not really what you were trying to do with your content strategy. So for instance, like, oh, hey, there's this hot new meme. Let's go ahead and let's do a funny video of our company because everyone's doing it. And you're like, is that what our company personality is? Is that going to help us make sales? No, but it's really fun. And the CEO says we're going to do it. So we're going to do it. And you're like, oh, great. So now we're wasting 2 days of our time chasing after something that is already over, because memes, you need to be on them immediately. And you're just like, this is not going to help us in any way, shape, or form. And you can get really sidelined and you can waste a lot of money and a lot of energy on it. And then people say, well, we didn't get anything from this, so content's a waste of time. And you're like, no, stupid content is a waste of time.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I have to take a moment and I've got to tweet that out, right? Oh my God. Stupid content is a waste of time. Yeah, that's brilliant. I have to put your name in there. That's like a total one that's totally quotable.
Well, it's just,
Love
it's
that.
so true. And it's sad because people will be like, oh, content marketing doesn't work. And it's like, but were you doing content marketing? Because just because it's content doesn't mean it's a content marketing approach.
And yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, right? Assuming that you've done very little content, like you've got a website and maybe you've got a social media presence, and I know I am speaking. If there are, how many are there? Oh my God, like 28 million small businesses in this country with like one employee or less or something like that.
Yeah.
I know, I'm gonna say 80 to 90% of them have websites and content marketing that they are unhappy with.
Yep. I believe it.
So
And
no matter
mostly,
how good or bad it is, they are unhappy with it.
right. And I think it's because they haven't sat down and thought through what their strategy is. Because strategy sounds scary and time consuming. And, why would we waste time doing that? We need to do.
So
But
how do you
you
find
really,
it? How do you do, and maybe you do this for folks, because I'm assuming you're working with folks who are in that space. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what to do. I've tried a couple things. They were all sucky, right? What should I do? That's why you're here. What are your steps? Or do you go to analysis? What analytical tools do you use? How do you even begin?
Yep, well, that is the first thing, is I ask them for access to Google Analytics and to pull me data from their social files. So that way I can actually see, where are they? What are they doing? And since I've done this enough, I can look at something and say, this isn't actually that bad, or yes, this is absolutely terrible. We need to stop doing it immediately. But it's really, first you start with the data, but then you sit them down and you say, okay, talk to me about your customer. What do they need? How are you trying to help them with what they need? And inevitably you find that, well, we're doing this content because, and it's something else. It's like, well, if you're doing this content and the because doesn't have your customer in it, then it's not the right thing for you to be spending your time and money on. Because how is that going to get you anywhere?
Yep. Number one. And isn't that funny, Erica, how all your life, what is the number one thing? You go into any class, any marketing class, any writing class, any sales class, like what is the first thing they say?
Know your audience.
Your audience, right?
And yet in business, we forget that because we're like, well, but we want to talk about ourselves. We want to talk about how great our product is. But guess what? No one cares. No one cares how great your product is. What they care about is themselves. They care about how their life is going to be improved, how they're going to be able to do their job better. They do not care about your product or you.
And and that's a really good point, because I think a lot of small businesses, especially when they're being run by someone who's an expert, like they are a technician, really, really good at this thing, whether it's something technical, whether it's manufacturing, something like that. And I think they're like, who's going to help me with content? I'm the only one who knows these special things. I see you making that face. What do you say to that people? What do you say to those people?
What I say is, you do have that subject matter expertise, and that's so valuable, but let someone else take that and run with it. Someone can interview you for an hour and come out with, 5 or 6 blog posts or an ebook or an idea for a workshop. Somebody who's a content person can figure out how to take your ideas and make them more. So yeah, they don't have that industry expertise, but that's your job. That's, what you serve. That's what you provide. And so to me, it's like, I could paint my bathroom, for instance, but am I going to paint my bathroom? What's my expertise in my bathroom painting? It's picking a color. And that's really as far as I should be involved with it, right?
Perfect. So I've got to ask the next question before I let you go, right? You talked about hiring a content person. What are what should people be looking for? The only one thing that I tell people is go find a journalist. Because journalists are like so good at asking questions, especially when they don't know anything about what you're writing. So that's the extent of my recommendation. What are some specific, maybe hacks, suggestions, ideas that you could give to a small business owner who's looking for that person to interview them or whatever?
I'd say start by being realistic about how much time you are personally going to spend on content. And if you really feel like you want to set it and forget it and have someone else be running it, then you need to find somebody who is also, well-versed in your industry. So for instance, I've worked a lot with HR people, I've worked a lot with enterprise technology, and I'm a gluten-free baker. So those are my areas of expertise, and I can work with a company in any of those 3 areas pretty independently. But let's say if I was going into something and it was about supply chain, I don't really know very much about it, but I'm a good journalist. So if they have time, I might be the right person for them. But if they don't have any time, then I'm not the right person because I'm not going to just make it up.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. So if you have more time than money,
Yep.
you can invest in working with a journalist who can kind of craft some of those stories for you.
Exactly.
If you have more money than time, you kind of should really be looking for a subject matter expert in your area.
Exactly.
That is a great, great tip. So, Erica, are you working with particular clients? Where should people go to get more information about you? Who do you want to contact you? Where should they go? What should they do?
The best place to contact me always is on Twitter. I'm SF Erica, and that's Erica with a K, not a C, and not both. Although I did know somebody who had both. So then my name was forever misspelled by all the people that knew both of us. And I'm at ericaheal.com, and you can find me at Content Chat on Mondays at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And I'm primarily right now working with enterprise technology, with marketing, sales, and HR kinds of customers.
So larger customers who have large teams that they want to try to get together. Is that correct?
Yep. Most of my smaller company work is primarily with solopreneurs and helping them figure out where are they trying to take their business and what do they need to be doing from a marketing standpoint.
That's awesome. And I love how appropriate your last name, Heal, heal your content strategy and get sales and marketing people to work together. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you go early because I know you've got a chat to get to. And so thank you so much for being here with us. Any parting words? What do you know for sure? Any parting words to the Bizapalooza chat folks?
Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. That's my mantra for content.
I love it. I love it. Erica Heald, thank you so much for being with us. Really, really appreciate. So if you have sales and marketing teams that are struggling to get together, you definitely want to watch this episode because the answers are in there. You can get in touch with Erica Heald. SF Erica.
Exactly.
Did I get that?
You did.
On Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Erica.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.